So before the break, we're telling you the situation concerning the lithium. Ghana's discovery of lithium, what was supposed to be a game changer when we discovered it in 2023, agreement signed. But as we speak, production hasn't begun. There's been a whole conversation about a new agreement which is currently before Parliament. Now, what's even in that agreement is a subject for discussion. But let's get onto the phone lines and speak to the CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, Engineer Ken Ashigbey. Good morning, Ken Ashigbey, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Great. So, we've been looking forward to the commencement of production for some time now. That hasn't happened. Last month, just about 2 weeks ago, the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources presented a revised agreement to Parliament. I don't know what your take is on that and whether you've seen the revised agreement and what you make of that revised agreement, first of all, before we go into other details.
Well, thank you very much. So, the price of lithium at the point where the agreement was done in 2023 has completely changed.
Sure.
And so, definitely, you needed to review the agreement in light of the current context so that the project itself would be viable, and then the government also and the people of Ghana would be able to benefit from this mineral find that we have. And so the minister had given his word that once Parliament came back, the revised agreement was going to be late. And so we're expecting that this process would be gone through as quickly as possible. The interesting thing is that Ghana was one of the very first, to have gone through the commercial find. And so the plan was to have been one of the earliest people to start a production. But since we started talking, we've had other countries, the likes of Nigeria, Mali, Zimbabwe, all now beginning to produce lithium. And so we need to really hurry to ensure that we can get into production.
Okay. So now that you talk about the price, let's get a bit specific. So currently, we know that in 2023, we had royalties of 10%, carrying interest of 13%. What has changed in the 2025 agreement?
There was the initial draft. I'm not too sure about the draft that is at Parliament. We're trying to get a copy of that. But I know that in principle, instead of the static royalty, there was going to be a sliding scale. That was what was proposed, so that when the price of lithium came up, then you could come up to the 10% that was initially in the initial agreement. And now that the price was lower, so you then would do a lower value, so that royalty moved with the external price of lithium. I believe that might be what is still in this current agreement, but I'm not too sure the carried interest has been right. Beyond the carried interest, government would be able to actually also buy some additional shares so far as the agreement is concerned. And I'm hoping that beyond the ratification of the agreement, government would also be able to put the money in to make sure that we take up the additional shares beyond the carried interest, that is the 10% carried interest that we have. We'll be able to take that up, because that's also going to be important. Because once you sign this agreement, the shareholders will have to now go onto the market and be able to raise the funds. But if government is able to bring its resources in early, then you're able to then use that, to start all the work that have to be done to be able to get into production, and to make sure that the people in Ewoyaa, some of whom have had their land, where compensation ought to be paid, you will be able to also start satisfying all of these people so far as that is concerned. So I am very hopeful that we'll sign this agreement quickly. But not only that, but government would also be able to put money in, so that when we talk about the fact that as Ghanaians we want to be able to get a lot more out of our resources, this then gives us an opportunity to be able to have some equity in the business, and so that in terms of the benefits we get, it will not just only be the fiscal and then the dividend on the carried interest, but this additional share that we would get would also result in what we get out of the lithium being tied to the fortunes of the company.
Now, when you spoke with the minister, when the minister told you that they were going to present this to Parliament once Parliament resumed, when did he assure that all things being equal, we're going to have it ratified?
Well, again, the minister will not be able to control when Parliament ratifies it. As executive, what he has to do is to be able to present to Parliament, and he's done that. So what we need to is to appeal to the Speaker of Parliament and the members of Parliament themselves, including the Select Committee, to speed up the process of this already late agreement, so that the people of Ewoyaa and the people of Ghana would be able to reap the benefits. Even before they started, mining at the first kilo of lithium, Atlantic Lithium at some point were one of the highest tax-paying entities in the Mount Kesi area, and there were even people who had gotten some jobs. But unfortunately, because of the delay, there are some of them who now have had to be laid off because the work had not started again. So it is important that we are able to start the processes so that we will be able to also ensure Ghanaians who have their lands, who are waiting for compensation, can be paid. Those who are waiting for jobs in the mine, and most importantly, other entities who will be providing services under the local content law would also be able to get some jobs, some work, and then also once we start the whole process, we as a country would also be able to benefit from this resource that is available to us. We know that there are other lithium finds, but definitely I'm sure before anybody would want to put money further into any of these projects, we want to see how the first one is going to go. So our appeal is to Parliament to do the needful as quickly as possible and get this agreement ratified, so that once government also puts its carried interest, the interest that government has, once government takes that, the company would also be able to raise the necessary resources so that they can start the process of getting into production.
Post-ratification, based on your understanding, when would production likely commence?
Well, once the ratification is done, now you have a contract for which you would need to raise the necessary funding to be able to start the process. I know that Atlantic Lithium are really very eager to be able to get this process to start. So once the ratification is done, the project will go through the normal life cycle, being able to raise the necessary funding to be able to start the process. Again, as I said to you, one of the ways to be able to do it, one of the people who could take equity shares, as you and I, represented by the government, taking that additional shares that we're entitled to. If we're able to raise that funding and immediately and put that in, it would be able to, short-circuit the process and speed up the process of being able to get into production. And then the company might then be able to also reach out to other shareholders and other investors to bring in the capital to be able to get into production.
Ken Ashigbey, thank you very, very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Winston.
Yes, and that's Ken Ashigbey, who is CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, joining us here on the Super Morning Show.
And Kofi, let me just highlight this from the director's report on. So Ken was just talking about how we could take a stake in the business, the government through MIIF taking a stake. If they also list on the stock exchange, we could all get a stake in that business, right? From the director's report on 23rd of July 2025, 9.6 million unlisted options held by the Minerals Income and Investment Fund and exercisable at $0.36 each, lapsed unexercised. So the options we made available, if I'm to explain this in simple terms, to say a 16-year-old, the options are like vouchers, which are being held for us to take. We have not taken the vouchers, and the vouchers came with an expiration date, so we didn't take those options. So a lot needs to be said about some of these projects and how we approach them, even the speed with which we approach them. If you want private sector to invest, we need to move very fast with taking decisions. And in taking those decisions, we need to ensure that we are getting the largest cuts possible. So in the royalties, for example, it will be interest to know what this government's renegotiations and proposals for the new lease will be. Because if you remember the statement the NDC put out in opposition, they said the 10% royalty they thought was too small.
Exactly.
And that we should use the variable royalty system. They quoted some countries, was it Chile or some country like that?
Now,
between 8 to 20%. So whenever there is a windfall, we could take advantage. So, and if the government, Minister of Lands, if you have the lease agreement, this is a national interest story. Just share. Let's see what you are proposing.
Exactly.
Let's see what you are proposing in the interest of the Republic of Ghana.
You know, and talking about what they are proposing, what we are learning is the fact that the royalty will be at, say, 5%, but it's a varying one. So when the price goes up, it would also go up. What I want to see is at what rate.
But they proposed in opposition that the 10%, which was the fixed royalty rate, should actually be the low end.
Yes.
You're talking about 5% now?
Yes, what we hear now is that...
Oh, you mean 15%?
No, 5.
Maybe the thing is 15, but I didn't see the one.
What we are learning is that...
But because the thing could be 15, maybe you didn't see the one.
What I'm learning is that it is 5%. And the fact that because now, at the time it was signed, a ton of lithium was about between $2,600 to $3,000. Now it's less than 1,000, around 600.
It's gone to 900 as we speak.
Okay, $900 per ton. So the expectation is that at the time the discussions were being had all over again, the price on the world market had reduced. So if you're looking at that, you probably would want to reduce and then say, if it goes up, we get this. So if it goes beyond, so that's what I say. I want to see.
But the business itself is projecting lithium prices recovering by 2028.
Good.
Right. Okay. For example, this is what they wrote, right? It says that on the lithium prices, like most of our peers, we have felt repercussions from the lithium prices significant decline, down over 70% from its peak in the late 2022. The impact at Ewoyaa has been compounded by the uncertainty around the timing of ratification, which collectively has undoubtedly affected our efforts to finance the project. Ewoyaa remains one of the most advanced pre-production lithium projects globally, which means that even in a depressed price environment, it is attracting strategic interest from across the EV battery supply chain. Demand for lithium is still growing at double-digit rates. So the price might have dropped, but the demand is still growing at double-digit rates. And there have been recent signs, encouraged by production curtailments in China, that a price recovery is ahead. General consensus among most market commentators is that such a recovery will come in 2028, 2029. Great. And this timing would mean that Ewoyaa would be coming on stream as the market rebounds. And we have a clear funding strategy in place. Now, I'm reading this because even if the ratification is done immediately, they are now coming to do the mine development to actually go into production. I'm not a miner, but I'm not sure mine development is a 3-month activity or a 6-month activity. No, so it may take them some time, maybe a year or 2 or even 3, till they start doing actual production. By that time, the prices would have...
The director's statement is key. By the time they come on stream...
prices will be good.
Prices will be good.
Projections.
So based on that, you probably could have said, based on this, we start from that the 10% and probably increase to 20%. But it'll be interesting for us to get a document. So, look, let them share the document with us. This should not be a secret document. So let's get the document.
The document is sitting in the ministry headed by the great Emmanuel Amakofibua.
Let's get the document.
The savior of the environment.